Yes, yeah, she was there.
We're going to call this special meeting of the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency to order. It's Monday, August 15th. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we will ask Mrs. Geyer to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Porter?
Here.
Commissioner Doty?
Here.
Commissioner Warwick? Here. Commissioner Moore?
Here.
Commissioner August?
Here.
Very good. Brings us to our first action item, and that is to consider acceptance of the request for proposals for property located at 516 Main Street. Stephen, you're up.
Right. Good afternoon, you all. Good to be back here in person without any technical glitches to deal with over across state lines and everything. So this is great. So just starting off with 516 Main Street, and you can see the proposals. We're going through them now, but we received 3 qualifying proposals at this location, which we are thrilled about. I mean, the proposals in general were all very high standard. You know, very strong proposals, which made this process pretty difficult for us to go through. But I'm going to walk through just the basic understanding of each proposal as you all sift through them virtually there. So the first one is Commons at Creek Crossing, and this is a proposal that's mixed use in nature. It's proposed by TS Development and Grand Peak Construction, and it's going to be a 3-story. The plan is a 3-story building with a multi-tenant. They'll have loft space as well, about 4 lofts total. Lofts are they're recommending in the proposal a kind of a live-work format that would be applicable on the second level. And they're also looking at doing additional office space. Look like they have about 3 that are proposed on the second floor there. And then the third floor will have additional restaurant space. And this restaurant in particular has received a letter of intent from a group out of Meridian. So they do have a firm commitment that is in hand, which is always a good sign to see for not just the agency, but for the city as we move forward in the process. The building totals about 23,425,000 square feet. So it's a big building, so roughly 23,000 square feet. The last thing I'll mention is that they have parking available on site, is what they have mentioned in their proposal. The parking, which was really hard to understand on the proposal and the format that's represented there. But despite that, they do designate parking on site. One thing that was clear is that they had mentioned that if a structure was to be developed by the city in the future, then they would actually redevelop that parking lot that they have dedicated for the site. So it will be a public-private parking lot on site that could be redeveloped in the future. So that was referenced. In terms of timelines, which we all care deeply about, development will originate in early 2023, and it will be completed in the fall of 2023. Second proposal comes to us from a group that we know well here in our community. This is Amano. Amano supports roughly 34 local businesses within the structure of their menu. They serve about 1,200 to 1,500 guests weekly, which is a dramatic amount, and they're actually just recently ranked the best restaurant in Caldwell from Boise Weekly. The building will showcase a rooftop garden. It covers 2 floors. It features about 3 patios, 4 retail and restaurant pads, and also divisible office space. The Amano restaurant will feature about 184 interior restaurant seats, which is, of course, much larger than their current setting, which they've outgrown quite a bit. And they added 80 patio seats and a 1,500 square foot speakeasy, which would be one of the only Mexican speakeasy restaurants on the West Coast, which was referenced in the proposal there. And the project total will be about 21,000 square feet. And they have also received letters of intent from 2 operators that will be joining them in this endeavor. The first of which is Lemon Tree Company. They're an artisan sandwich group out of the Boise area. I think they have about 4 or 5 locations across the Treasure Valley. Really well-known local brand. And then Clay Ceramics. They are based in Canyon County, and they make ceramic pottery, which is really neat. So those 2 groups have committed to the project. Amano has about 50 employees, and they're expected to bring about 80 to 100 to this particular location. And they also plan to break ground in December of 2022 with project completion date in March of 2024. And then the last group that we have, last but not least, Darson's Group and Cushing Terrell. And this particular group has a mixed-use concept as well. It has a feature of hotel rooms, conference center, restaurants, entertainment venue, just an all-inclusive type of facility that they're contemplating here. The concept includes a diverse food hall and also a restaurant style. The food hall can serve as more or less an incubator for startup restaurant groups that are going in that don't have the capacity to expand into a brick and mortar, but can offer that diverse food eating experience within a structure of a food court of sorts. Also, they would have a family entertainment center. This would be maybe a bocce ball or mini bowling, also some indoor axe throwing incorporated into the plan. They have a restaurant. They have a verbal commitment from a group out of Boise, Western proper, and also they contemplate a boutique hotel plan within the integration. So they've given us two options to consider. First option is option A. This option only contemplates a food hall, entertainment venue, and a conference center on the second floor with a sky bridge to the adjacent hotel that would be developed by another group, and then a restaurant with a rooftop garden. So option A does not contemplate a hotel. Option B, however, considers all of those elements integrated to the actual completion of a boutique hotel. A boutique hotel would be about 120 rooms with valet parking, along with all the other amenities that were aforementioned. The development will break ground in the spring of 2024 with a completion date estimated for the fall of 2025. So as you all can see, as an agency, we have some really strong proposals in front of us. We're very pleased with the outcome of this process. And after contemplating all the proposals as thoroughly as we could, staff, we've discussed it over the past week and a half and just privately as well. We recommend the Amano proposal for this site. We considered the goals of Main Street being a restaurant row for downtown Caldwell to have this integration of eateries along Main Street, which we thought would be a neat, as we envisaged the downtown development, we considered that to be an element that we would like to incorporate. Also, the building allows us to step into the future while allowing us to recognize where Caldwell is at today with the integration of nature and, of course, the rooftop garden and that farm to fork experience that we all like to see in our restaurants. In addition, the commitments in place for this project with the letters of intent that have been received allow us to expand on the local fabric that we hope to create in this community. These are excellent brands that would be terrific fits for Caldwell. And also, this new facility would allow Amano to serve a broader base of customers while keeping them in Caldwell. They've been courted by other groups or other communities, I should say, and they are very committed to Caldwell. They want to be here. They just, in their current facility, it's very difficult for them to operate at the scale that they hope to achieve. So we would like to see this project develop as soon as possible. And we would like to outline the construction timeline and those types of details within a disposition and development agreement. And we would like to recommend the establishment of an exclusive development agreement with Amano at this time. And I stand for any questions you might have.
Okay, questions for Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Doty?
Did you know? Hi, Steve. How are you?
Good.
So we heard about the parking of the other two. What is Amano's plan for parking?
Chairman Commissioner Doty, there is no parking that is planned on site for this facility. So one of the proposals featured parking, the other two did not.
Mr. Allgood?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure I understood correctly. So in this pad space, there would be a mono restaurant plus 2 additional occupants?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Chairman Commissioner Allgood, absolutely. So they have a plan that features a main restaurant, and then they have another restaurant on the first floor, which would be Lemon Tree, and then they have 2 retail spaces on the first floor, and then a speakeasy restaurant that's attached to Amano. The speakeasy is more or less an exclusive experience for customers that come in, perhaps a late night type of feel, just a private venue, and that is integrated into the overall restaurant. But the main feature is the Amano restaurant there. And then the second floor will feature 6,000 square feet of office space that's divisible. So it could be one user, it could be multiple users. You can see in the design that it really showcases the creek. Of course, it has the glass ambiance, and it allows for folks that are engaging on the second level to look at the natural asset that we have on Indian Creek.
Other questions? Mr. Allgood?
I'm still thinking
Oh,
here.
okay.
So.
All right, very good.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Warwick?
I know you mentioned on-site parking for one of the proposals, but as I looked through the designs, I didn't see any parking anywhere. Am I just missing it?
Yes, Commissioner Warwick, I looked through it as well. It was dictated, it was implied in the proposal that there was parking within the development. It wasn't clear to me either, where the parking was located on that property. But it was mentioned in the proposal and of course the development plan for, having it redeveloped in the future was mentioned as well.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't see it. All right, I'm glad I'm on board with you.
Mr. Ogden?
And just continuing the thought, so kind of just re-establish for me what moved Amano to the top of the list over the other two?
Absolutely, and Commissioner Alga, this was very difficult for us to sift through as we were going through the documents, just trying to figure out what the highest and best use would be at this location. Really, it boiled down to staff. You know, this can be a business retention plan for a restaurant that is a high-performing restaurant in our community. In addition to that, of course, they have their own ecosystem within the community. And by that, I mean they support so many local groups. They have about 34 that they support in their operation, and we felt that was pretty important from an economic development standpoint. We also looked at the number of employees that they currently have and the ones that they're forecasting, and thought that number was something that certainly represented the path that we would like to have for our community in terms of growing employment. Actually, 94% of their current employees they live in Canyon County. So we thought that was another attribute that certainly stood out to us. In addition to those things, the quality of the design, of course, the quality was represented in all the designs that we received, but this quality in particular, they actually commissioned an architectural group out of San Diego, which was indicated in the proposal, but they came in with a very unique plan. Of course, they need to go through design review with planning and zoning as this becomes more official, but we thought that building in particular allowed us to really have a standout project that would be a showcase on Main Street. And then lastly, the thing that was mentioned from staff was that we could establish, again, that restaurant row experience for diners on Main Street to kind of come down that corridor and enter, of course, the future of Festival Street, which will be developed in the future, and then, of course, going into the plaza. So we thought that the integration and the sequence of restaurants along Main Street would be something that we would like to see achieved in conjunction with the hotel.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Ramirez?
Not to beat a dead horse, but on page 2 of their proposal, they talk about parking, or they have it on their content, but I can't find it anywhere in the proposal. Does that mean it was left out, or there was a parking idea that was changed, or do you know?
Commissioner Ramirez, just to clarify, you're referring to the commons at Creek Crossing proposal?
No, the Amano.
Oh, the Amano. Oh, so
Page 2 of their proposal, which is the table of contents, they have a line there for parking, but I can't find it anywhere in the documentation.
absolutely. So yes, I believe was just a reference to parking within downtown Caldwell. I think that holistically, they mentioned that within their proposal. I don't think that mentioned anything. They don't have anything demarcated for parking on site for their development. As a whole, that was really one of the areas that we wanted to see each proposer cover, how they're going to discuss parking and how that might be addressed. And I know Amano mentioned it, but they don't include parking on their project, within their project.
Nobody does.
Steve, have the Amano people ever mentioned parking as one of the considerations or concerns for their business? It seems that, during COVID, there was a staffing shortage, and then, but have they ever expressed that parking was the issue in not being able to serve the number of customers that they like, more so than just the space that they're in?
Absolutely, Chairman. I will say there was some concern when of course, the Creekside development, that was more or less a pseudo parking lot for a number of our patrons prior to that becoming redeveloped. And that was a concern to Amano and another they were among many others that had a concern that parking lot would be going away. But to their surprise, I mean, they have certainly stayed busy, and that has not precluded them from having, their traditional clientele along with new consumers that have come by. and have partook in their restaurant. So it is something that is top of mind, but my theory along with theirs is that people find a way. You know, if you're good enough and if you're certainly representing a higher standard, then people find a way to get to you. Amano, the owners, they understand that we're working on our parking strategy. They're obviously actively engaged in that process, and they believe that eventually this is going to work out, and we're gonna find solutions holistically for parking downtown. But in the short term, they're not concerned that it's going to impact their business in that manner. Of course, they don't have parking in front of their restaurant now, and they have a large number of guests, which was indicated in their proposal.
Thanks. Other questions?
About parking at our facility. I don't talk to him. I just heard parking, and we had a problem, so
Sure.
I took it back to you.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to address that after getting through the proposal piece. Yeah, I'll sit with you after the meeting and we'll talk a little bit about it.
Are you gonna make copies for people on that? Showing the new businesses and on the desk?
Not on this particular document, but I'm happy to give you my card and you can email me and I can share some information with you. Great, thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Steve, we do have the city has a parking workshop coming up, next month, correct?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
All right, very good. Dave, any questions? Okay, well, we have a recommendation from the, Economic Development Committee. What would the commission like to do?
So, just so I'm clear, what we would be making a motion on is, we would just be making a motion for them to move forward with, what's it called, Taylor? What would be the next step?
EDA?
The DDA? Okay, just want to make sure I knew what we were moving to do.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one clarifying question?
Mr. Doty.
So I just want to make sure, is there any more maintenance or anything the city's obligated to do at the property and all that money's accounted for? Because most of our projections have been underwrite because of the economy that we're in. So I just want to ensure that we don't have anything hidden, because sometimes we do have things that we're unaware of that may create future expenses. So how far along are we on the property, and how far committed are we on that, if that makes sense?
Is it shovel ready?
Yeah, Commissioner Doty, thank you for that question. And this is something that is top of mind for us as well and on staff. And we have engaged DEQ to do an environmental assessment on the property. We have a few more steps to get through before they actually conduct the process, but that has been initiated. And that was, again, taking initiative based on comments that were shared previously about this location concerning different issues that may arise. So we just want to make sure that we don't have any surprises on site. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. And DEQ they have some terrific programs that can assist us in making sure that we have that assurance going into this project.
Thank you. So, I'm sorry, just to follow up on that. So translated, there's still potential for something. We're just doing our due diligence to make sure that before we turn it over, it's clear?
Absolutely, yes. Our goal is to just go in with eyes wide open. Of course, we don't want to hand it off and have any, I guess, nebulous concerns out there floating around. So we just want to make sure that we have all the details in front of us. But yes, Commissioner Allgood, the process will hopefully not reveal anything unexpected. The expectation is that it is a clean site. We actually, going off of a previous assessment done years ago, our idea of it is clean and ready to go. But of course, we just want to have it in tangible form so that we can pass it along to the next user.
Thank you.
Is that clear or make sense?
Yeah, it's,
And there's still money set aside in the budget just in case we do run into anything that needs to be remediated. So we're in a good position. We can thank Mr. Moore for bringing this to our attention and making sure that it truly is shovel ready and clean and ready for the user.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Moore?
I'm confused. So, we're looking at 3 proposals here, and we're doing what today? I mean,
Moving forward with the recommendation from Economic Development that
That we're-
Amano be the,
and how did we determine the other 2 are below that? From your guys' discussion, from prior discussion?
Yeah, Commissioner Moore, what we did was we went through them.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, I was listening to what you said when he asked it, but I'm still not understanding.
Absolutely. Totally understand. So we went through them and just had to identify what the objectives are for this particular location, what we had envisioned for the area in terms of development, how we wanted things to flow. One of the, obviously, a factor that I failed to mention to Commissioner Allgood is, of course, having these end users incorporated into one plan. It was something that really piqued the interest of the development team, so that we understood that, gosh, we have these commitments from different groups that are coming in that can just add to the vibrancy of what we're hoping to create. And of course, after vetting these groups and looking at the following that they have, we felt that they would be very strong fits there in conjunction with all the other features that were mentioned previously. But we feel as though these groups can add to our momentum that we've created in Caldwell.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
A little tough when they're all so good.
other questions?
I guess the problem is that we have 3 very good candidates. It's hard to, although I follow staff's recommendation, you guys do it for a living, but
Right.
it sounds to me like we have, any of the 3 candidates would be good for the spot. But I do like the idea of retaining Amano in downtown because of their following.
And the problem I see with the one that contains the hotel is, once again, you're talking about you're gonna need more parking there.
Yes.
Amano,
Correct, and
Amano
one
to
has
me,
residential parking as well.
right, Amano to me is the most attractive.
Mr. Senga?
So the third proposal was our proposal, so I think we went through it too quickly. So the proposal is, part A is food hall, a conference center on the second floor, and a high-end restaurant and bar with the outdoor entertainment and movies on the third floor. That's our proposal for this, with the sky bridge, 15-foot sky bridge connecting to the hotel in the future. And the part B is, if the understanding is that the city and the Chase is looking for RFQs to find an operator for the hotels, and we are an operator of the hotels. So as part B, what we are suggesting is we can take both machine shop location and the hotel location and combine them both and create a hotel with a conference center. So we're not adding a new hotel, we're working with either the developer of the hotel, or if they decide to assign it to us, then we'll develop the whole thing together. Just wanted to be clear on that. So there's no new hotel, just the existing.
Just
Yeah.
whatever hotel is going to be there.
Be there, yeah.
I get it.
I'm very glad you cleared that up, because I was in some confusion there.
Yeah, and I have talked to multiple people, and the conference center is required amenity, so we decided that we're gonna put the conference center regardless. So it's gonna be a food court, a conference center, and a restaurant and a bar connected to the hotel that's already has, or if the hotel gets assigned to someone like us, we'll do the whole project and combine hotel with the conference center.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That muddies the water a little bit.
Yeah, what RFP is, which one is that?
That's the third one?
The third one? Okay. Which I thought, but I don't.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And Ken, thank you for clarifying. Just to add an additional comment, that, yes, that encompasses a broader development. Of course, the Chase and the Creekside, they're looking to acquire a hotel partner. And in this proposal, what Darson's group is proposing is that they would be the hotel operator, providing a boutique-style hotel of 120 rooms roughly, that would feature that hotel along with all the other amenities. So it'd be a a broader project. The scope of the project certainly changes.
And I keep hammering on you here, but we don't know what the Chase Mixes is gonna do. But if what Mr. Sangha was saying came to fruition, then we would have, kind of a combined use of the whole property. And the staff still felt like a mono was the better fit at that location?
Yes, Commissioner Allgood, yes. And again, this was we look at the combination of all these projects and try to weigh out what would be what would be the best use there.
Mhm.
And for us, as staff, as we contemplated the proposals, although this one, as spectacular as it is, of course, with the hotel and with the conference, and these are elements of the things that we need in our community. We looked at the retention strategy of a mono. We also looked at the additional users that are coming in. And then we looked at the building, the structure of the building, you know, what it represented. We also looked at the way in which they support other business groups that are here. Just a variety of factors were evaluated to assess this final outcome. And really, we feel as though, gosh, we're inspired and encouraged by the quality of developments we received on this site. But as it relates to the strategy to help with job creation and also to keep a thriving business in our community that is doing well and that has gained notoriety across the valley and across the region, we felt it was important for them to create this facility that would allow them to expand and grow into the footprint that they hope to achieve one day.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, how would we like to move?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Warwick?
I'll agree. We've got three beautiful proposals, and it would be great if we could accept all three at different places within our downtown. I love them. I know how hard an economic development staff works, and I'm sure they've considered many things that we probably aren't considering here because they're experts in that. And so, to support them, I'd like to make a motion that we accept Amano's proposal.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Warwick.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ramirez. Any other discussion?
Well, I'm struggling. I completely understand relying on staff. These are just
They're
great
awesome.
proposals.
They're awesome, yeah.
Yeah,
I am too.
Wow. I wish we had 3 or 4 more lots there, cause this is, I don't know, I don't know what else to say. I'm just having a hard time here because.
Understood. Yeah, yeah. We rarely find ourselves in this situation, do we? Okay. All right, well, we have a motion, we have a second. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. That's difficult.
That is difficult.
But necessary.
These are exciting. They're tough to.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Takes us to action item number 2, consider termination of negotiations with Aztec Development for the RFP at Arthur and Kimball. Stephen, you're up again, or Taylor, or whoever's addressing this.
Yeah. Sure. All right, I can jump on this, no problem. So, good to see you all again. So, Arthur and Kimball, this property, of course, is a very important one to us in the community. This is currently a dirt lot downtown, and of course, you don't want to see a dirt lot in a vibrant downtown environment. So, but since my time with the city, this project in particular has been awarded to 3 different groups. Of course, we're on the 3rd group now. Aztec submitted a proposal It was finalized, actually, just going back and looking at the research, the data, I noticed that on September 13th, the deadline was established of 2021. So we've been working on this for quite some time, and they proposed a development called Stage 1. And this is a mixed-use, friendly dining establishment on the first floor. Then you would have a second floor, kind of rooftop setting so that the patrons can actually see into the plaza, which I thought was a very unique design and component of the project. And then lastly, they have a residential component that's integrated into the plan. So the first floor would feature glass roll-up doors, have a combination of glass and steel. It would allow for that indoor-outdoor eating experience year-round, which is really neat for a group operator on the first floor there. And then the patio on the second floor will add additional seating to that particular restaurant venue, as well as, viewing opportunities for concerts and events, as I mentioned. And then lastly, the third floor will feature studio-style efficiency living units, so that there's a true mixed-use component. This is, of course, with the Aztec development, and Ken is here to answer any questions that you might have that pertain to the actual development itself. But just as an overview, this is what's being represented. The goal of this project was to commence development this year, summer of 2022, which is about a week from now or so, something like that. But of course, with all the delays and construction concerns out there that really have impacted at each development that we've had here in the city in some form or another. So it has been a challenging development environment, but that was the goal. So, of course, outside of that, there have been concerns about parking here at this location. So I know that's a key word for tonight's meeting, as it is in many of our meetings, but that was a concern for this particular development. This afternoon's meeting is meant to provide an avenue for where we go from here. Of course, with Ken being here, I wanted him to be able to articulate, his design and what he plans and envisions for the site, but also giving you all transparent timelines for development so that you can assess things properly and make a decision moving forward. So I'll allow Ken to come up and answer any questions, unless there are any other questions for me.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay, thank you. Mr. Sanga. Welcome again.
I'm open to questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Allgood.
And Mr. Sanga,
Yes, sir.
I just like seeing you here. You're
Yes,
an energetic
yes.
guy.
Thank you. I love being in Caldwell.
So, the last time we did this, you were at a standstill because you could not get a restaurateur to sign up because of the parking issue. Is that?
Right. Well, not a high-end restaurateur that can bring enough density or enough volume to the business. If we divide it into two or three and have, maybe two different restaurateurs, that they'll be like, 50 seats each or 75 seats each, may not be such a big deal. But my goal was to bring our high-end restaurant and a bar that will kind of,
Right.
because we in good faith have are going to actually acquire the next 3 lots to make it a one big piece, and so it'll be a decent sized project.
So, this is listed as a discussion to terminate the agreement with you. Are you still wanting to move forward, or are you at a point where it's like, this is not gonna pan for you?
Yeah, so I just got that message from Taylor last week that there's this special meeting for termination of this, which I thought we were moving full swing ahead, and this came as a surprise to me that there's a termination, because last time we were talking about finding still a solution as far as parking and stuff is concerned. So I am just here to understand where you guys stand, because I have spent a year and a half into this project, working with the DDA portion and the ownership of the next 3 lots. So we are ready and willing to move forward. I just don't understand where this whole group stands at this point.
Well, go ahead, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I would just say that I'm in agreement that the last time we were here, we were just kind of, there was no deadline.
Yeah.
No shovel going in the ground, that we didn't know what we were doing. So it doesn't come as a surprise to me that it would be a termination. But now today you're saying, no, maybe you are ready to go forward with something. I think the goal is to not just leave it forever with no end in sight, with just repetitive meetings saying eventually we'll come up with something. Even if the city comes up with parking, in my opinion only, because Chris is up here too, that's, as you know, that's not happening today or tomorrow. We're gonna try and come with some alternative solutions, a couple of what you have suggested already in front of us. So if that's what we're waiting on, is this ultimate parking garage, even if we were to start it today, we're 2 years out, right? Even if we were to start building that parking garage today. So we don't wanna wait 2 years to get something on the dirt lot
Absolutely.
when we're, yeah.
I understand, and the DDA that we have somewhat finalized has two-step construction plan. So we do the commercial construction first for the first floor, and then the residential portion comes a year later. So my hope is that in a couple of years, there will be, I'm sorry, a little bit more clarity to the whole parking situation, because it's gonna be hard, studio or non-studio. It's gonna be hard because last time Steve and I were talking about, and Steve actually proposed that maybe residential permits for residents that are, which doesn't give them any particular spot. They just park somewhere and they wouldn't be ticketed. And if we can figure some way that that's an option in the future, you know, we're okay to move forward. I just don't want to be in a situation where city says absolutely no parking for you. You guys park your cars on the fourth floor, figure it out of your own building, and then we're in trouble.
Well, I guess I'm already not a big fan of the one parking permit thing we did with the hotel, because I just don't think it's going to work out as we envision it to. But even if we give you permits, you know, we can't allow parking on private property or people that control that property.
Understood.
So I'm not sure what a parking permit, you mean that, like, if we put in meters or
Yeah, so how
Hourly
Boise does it,
parking?
yeah, they give you a resident parking permit, which allows you to park in the vicinity of public, wherever the public parking is available without getting a ticket, and or have to follow the, you know, 1 hour limit or
So
something
it
like
would, it would be on-street parking.
either on street or on one of the parking lots across the railroad tracks, or, you know, wherever it is, so that people have a place to park.
If we put up meters or 3 hour only, they'd have a permit that says
To
that's null
bypass
and
that,
void for them.
Right. We just kinda, you know, I agree, need to get somewhere where you know you can proceed, because it's just open-ended at this point.
Right.
Was our biggest problem, is
Yeah.
we're already to the deadline,
And we,
and we still don't really have a direction.
yeah, and our project is pretty straightforward, and we're ready to move forward with it. Yes, we have been trying to figure out the underground parking, and that didn't work out, and the access, and then talking to the bookstore, that didn't work out. And so at this point, you know, we'll move forward with the project, and we'll have to, for the lack of better word, on the first floor, try to dumb it down a little bit, and not go for the top of the line, unless somebody says and comes in and says, we don't care about the parking, we'll sign the lease with you. And but the people that we did have in communication with wanted some kind of parking.
Sure.
Mr. Doty?
Have you considered at all making the first floor parking just on ground level, you'd pull in under the building and then go up from there?
No, we haven't considered that. I think it's too prime of a spot to lose the ground floor. I don't think that is the best use of the ground floor on that location, especially being across the street from the stage and the plaza.
Okay.
So I think the last meeting just left us confused. So without any, we're not the council, we're the urban renewal, so there's two different boards here, but without any assurances from this body or the city council, are you ready to continue with your project?
We would like some kind of assurance that, when, the residential development happens, that at least we will get resident permits, if not designated parking, which understood is not. So if we can get, at least the permits, so they have some place to park.
Mm-hmm.
And how many units were going to be part of, your development?
We were thinking about 22 units.
Oh, wow, that's a lot more than I was
Mhm.
thinking.
Cause I think we talked about 8, and 16 parking spots or something along those lines.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Doty?
Mr. Jenkins, do you remember how many permits that we're giving to the hotel already? I know they're gonna have some on-site parking, but we had kind of made the same arrangement, if I remember right, with the hotel. So how many permits did we guarantee them?
Yes, Chairman, Commissioner Doty, I don't know the exact number of permits. I can tell you, my understanding is that there are 66 spaces on site, and the rest of the spaces would need to be accounted for throughout the downtown core. So,
I don't know how many, is that double, is it?
no, and really this project, of course, is gonna feature a hotel. So I'm a little blurry on the exact amount of permits that were dedicated to this project, but I do know that, of course, they need to account for what's left over and not available on site for the Creekside development.
Right, so the number I'm trying to get is if let's say we already gave 60 permits away to them, and then now another, however many you're requesting, I'm guessing at least 2 for each.
We are going with studio style, so one each is good enough for us. So
22 more.
will
Okay.
be, yeah.
So that would mean, though, I think that number is bigger than the 60 whatever that's on site, if I remember correctly. So then we're giving away, let's say, 100 parking spots downtown,
Mm-hmm.
and without any repercussions for doing it. So now you have 100 business spots used downtown, and they can just park there all day long, 24 hours a day, and never have to move. And we're shoving all of those right downtown in this corridor where we're trying to build restaurants. And so, just off a calculation, what I remember, we're up to 100 spots that we would be giving permits to that wouldn't ever have to move their vehicle off the street. And so that concerns me.
So, did that, 22 number go up from the previous number? Cause I remember it being a smaller number.
I thought it was smaller too.
Yeah, we went with the studio apartments. Otherwise, if you go with the 8 number with the 2 parking spots, that still come out to be 16.
Mm-hmm.
And, the consensus is that, studio apartments are more needed, especially for, when we talk to the hospitals and some of the medical organizations in the area, when they have nurses coming in and all that stuff, and they're looking for that kind of, accommodation. And, bigger apartments will be, they're already building bigger apartments, so there's no need to compete with them.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Doty?
just thinking out loud, though, at some point, we are going to have to, and I get that we can't guarantee anything here. Clearly, I think everyone knows that. But at some point, whether it's here or a year when he gets to this, even if we guarantee the other 24 like we did for the hotel, we are going to have to do something with parking. I mean, or, I know it's a concern, which I just mentioned about the 24, but at this point, adding another 24 more is not going to cure, or not issuing 24, if that makes sense, cure the problem that we're about to see when that hotel is built. So I think that even though we can't guarantee anything, in the end, we're going to have to do something, so.
And our project is, probably, start to completion is probably 2 to 3 years out, so we have some time, hopefully by that time something happens.
I'm sorry, I don't think this body is the right body to make parking
Sure,
decisions.
sure.
You know,
Right.
So that,
Keep that separate is what I'm trying to do.
well, yeah, and
Yeah.
that being said, how do we move forward with Mr. Senga? Or are we kicking the can down the road because we can't?
Let's ask excuse me, let's ask Taylor to weigh in. And Mr. Sangha has referenced, a two-part TDA that he's been working on with Mr. Hilty. Is that correct?
Sure.
Still quiet, Debbie. It's out of time, right? We need to know what can be committed to now without any guarantees of parking. So, while we can still kind of extend time a bit with the DDA, it needs to be a very strong idea of what we're going to do. We have to move past that conceptualization.
Was there a recommendation from your office as to how long that should be?
Clarify what you mean by
Yeah,
how long.
how much longer should we give before we,
So in speaking with Mr. Hilty, the anticipation was that by next meeting in September, we have a finalized or close to a finalized DDA of what that would look like.
and that's September 12th, I believe? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so just looking at that number, it's well over 100. So I guess what I'm saying is kind of in reverse of before, even if we give another 24, something's going to need to be done. That's all I'll say about parking, since we don't discuss parking here. However, if he doesn't move on it, we're still in the same predicament with any building that goes in there. So I just would like to.
Well, I think the predicament, for me, just speaking for my own, is the residential component. Everything else is not a predicament for me, because the residential component is a 24-hour-a-day situation. That's with the parking, and for residential, they would need some kind of designated parking situation, or they'd be driving around downtown looking for a place to park the car all afternoon. And so, but that's the hangup, because someone going to a restaurant needs a parking spot for a couple of hours. Somebody living there needs a parking spot 24/7.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Warwick?
Yeah,
Everybody's leaning in.
it's tough to know what to do there, because our agency is getting ready to sunset. We have to know what we're gonna do with that ground in time for us to do something with that ground.
Commissioner Warwick, as it said before, if anybody else comes into my position, you're gonna have same. It's not like all of a sudden somebody else is gonna come in and that issue is gonna go away. So we have to figure something out because that's the RFP that was approved, and the desire was to do something like that. And all we are asking for is to give us some kind of a future assurance, if not guarantee, that when we start building that residential component, that we will be able to market it to people that, hey, you don't have to be walk only, because I don't think we are there yet as Caldwell as a walk only town.
Yeah, I get it.
So, just shooting from the hip here, can we get it on the council agenda for the 1st of September? To discuss this particular situation, and then reply back to Mr. Sangha,
At
the
our next
council said
meeting.
yes or no on parking permits. I don't know, I'm just trying to resolve this.
I would second that. I mean, I think that's a logical idea. Taylor, do you want to give us some guidance here?
So, as you mentioned, it is within the city council's discretion to, I will say, if they choose not to extend those parking permits, I believe we discussed 5 was kind of what you were looking for. If they decide not to extend those permits, we're kind of back in the same position that we are now. Unfortunately, so I'm just not sure. That gives us, again, past the conceptualization phase. That's kind of the concern that I have. I understand we're trying to get creative with it, but I'll say we've creative past couple months trying to really figure out what that could look like. And Mr. Senga, jump in if I'm speaking for you. So you and I discussed potentially altering the RFP or represent out the residential component. As it would, sorry, we wouldn't be able to commit to we wouldn't be able to commit to any sort of, agreement or promise to guarantee parking in the future, obviously, we just couldn't. But if we remove the residential component, we could have a vote on whether or not that would be appropriate.
Our preference will be to, maybe somehow attach the residential permit. If, let's say, we're not ready to talk about parking right now, that, let's say our residential, part of the construction is supposed to start of 2024, that we won't be, the city won't hold a gun to our head and saying that you said you're gonna build this residential so many units, go ahead and build it, we don't care where you park. That's the only concern, as long as there was some kind of understanding that there will be some flexibility there. We can move the project forward or backwards based on that. That's not an issue as long as the flexibility was mutual.
I may, I would prefer, from a legal perspective, I'd prefer for us not to move backwards. I'd prefer to only move forward, meaning for the DDA to describe what you're able to commit to today without any parking guarantees, then we can always add on to the development as the residents hesitate to commit to any sort of agreement that's contingent on parking being developed and then having to kind of de-escalate.
Makes sense.
So, go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ramirez?
So today, we're just talking about the timeline for the DDA, correct? The parking issue is for somebody else to make the decision, not for us.
Well, if he's tied into residences, and we can't provide parking spots, where did that end?
No, understood. But our role here is just to decide, do we give this gentleman more time to do whatever he needs to with another entity to make the determination whether or not they're going to be able to do the parking issues? That's how I'm understanding this whole process.
So, on the agenda is an action item to consider termination of the negotiations. If the agency sees a path forward with inquiring with city council in the beginning of September if they would extend those 25 parking passes for residents, we can certainly do something like that with the understanding that it may put us right back to the exact same position that we're in, and we're at our deadline in the middle of September.
Understood. I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse, because I'd love to be able to extend this. We got a bird in the hand that's ready to move forward doing whatever we need to. Somebody else has to make the decision whether or not the parking will be extended or not. So making a decision to terminate negotiations before that other option is vested out. I don't know that I would be ready to go, okay, let's terminate negotiations and lose a potential development, very nice development, it sounds like. So my 2 cents.
Chris and Dave, a couple of moments ago, you put together a motion, and there was a second. Do you recall what that was?
I don't.
Oh, it was about sending the parking issue on to council.
And extending it to what, September, first week of September or something? Or
Well, to the next scheduled URA meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Doty?
wouldn't the motion be to just continue this until then? I don't think we can really dictate what is gonna happen at the city council, right? Or maybe Debbie can chip in too, but just because we make a motion here doesn't mean it makes the city council.
Right, it was just to continue it until.
All right. How does that sound? Continue this particular action item.
I just wanna make very clear to Mr. Sangha, and that this is me, but I have no idea what the city council will say about parking permits, cause it's such a difficult issue, but, if parking can't be resolved at that permit situation, I wouldn't vote to move forward with this project without a parking, and I think you're in the same place, but,
Yeah, it won't work. Yeah.
it's just, if the parking doesn't exist, then I just wouldn't want 25 parking spots on the street with residence tags. I couldn't.
There's parking lots not very far from, is 2 blocks away. There's a parking lot across the
Right,
railroad
right.
track. So I don't think on the street is, let's say I came home at 6 p.m. and all the street parking is taken by the restaurant crowd and all that stuff. The next logical place is to go to the next parking lot that's gonna be available. So I don't foresee that as a huge issue, because you are not going to park at a parking lot and then go at 11 o'clock at night and bring it to the street so that it could be next to you. That doesn't really make sense. So I don't foresee that as a huge issue, as far as, other than maybe Sunday, and, so
Okay.
hopefully by then we'll have some more
Well, I will-
progress on the parking.
I will make a motion that, do you have something before I go with this, Ted? I'll make a motion that, we, continue this to our next scheduled urban renewal meeting on, I believe it's September 12th. And, we'll ask that Madam Clerk put it on the agenda for city council, the next city council meeting.
A motion by Mr. Algood, second by Mr. Moore. Would the secretary call the roll?
So can I get clarification, you say next to the council, are you talking about Thursday, or are you talking about September 1?
Oh, I was thinking September 1.
Alden,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
Warwick. Yes. Porter.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Sanger.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for your patience. Takes us to item number 3, regarding, what do you know, parking. And 510 Arthur Street and some fresh ideas. Stephen?
Yes, Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for your time. And I will note, it's unique in my position where I have the opportunity to travel to different communities. And I always pay attention to the elements that are around me in downtown atmospheres. And of course, our community is so much different than others that are out there. But as I look at the parking that we have, the woes that we express on a weekly or monthly basis, they're so much different in other communities. Being in Vancouver, Washington this past week and walking around their downtown and looking at their riverfront, they had no parking there for their restaurants and the residents that were on site. They had some underground parking that was available, but they certainly didn't have 500 parking stalls available that were free of charge adjacent to the tracks there. So I just want to be clear that, of course, we are experiencing growth. We want to see these things happen in our downtown. That's an indication that we're doing things properly, right? Where people want to be here and want to engage in our community. But as it relates to parking in other communities, particularly in these bigger cities that have these amenities, I certainly have to say that I don't see the same the same concerns here that I do there. So we're in a pretty good spot across the board. So it's not as dire as it sounds like here. So 510 Arthur Street. So as you're aware, this property was purchased recently to help mitigate our concerns for parking downtown. It's a great location, great property there. This site has some inherent value just based on its proximity to the creek. And we in economic development really see the benefit of looking at this property in a unique way, which is why it's on the agenda tonight to discuss further. In the short term, this is going to alleviate some concerns for parking. Of course, with the Bam Jam basketball tournament, we saw that parking lot full. I mean, it was great to see it being activated and being utilized in that way. And of course, when that building comes down, which it's planned to be demolished within the next couple weeks or so, that will provide some relief for parking for downtown. That's within proximity to the plaza and some other things that we have currently available for our citizens and visitors to partake in. So due to the inherent value of the property, I just want to bring this in front of you all for further discussion. It would be a great redevelopment site to consider in our eyes. Of course, we always looked at this as, how do we phase this into, potentially a parking garage? Of course, we're gonna have on-site parking, but I think the ultimate plan was to investigate that further. I've been in discussion with different groups that have, they work on parking garages quite a bit. And in my discussion with one particular group, they had indicated that this property is prime. I mean, and I would, second that, to be honest with you, just looking at it and seeing what potential is there. Of course, we also have the potential of vacating some right-of-way in Arthur to extend the footprint of the site, but it's adjacency to the creek, of course, it's adjacency to the plaza, to the bridge there. Walkability into downtown is very easy and straightforward, somewhat seamless there. So we look at that inherent value. I just wanted to put this in front of you all to discuss further. As we look at a potential structure and talking about that, it's been mentioned that, hey, the city owns other property that you might consider, that might be a better fit for a garage structure. A garage is, of course, just to park vehicles, right? The idea of parking vehicles here, of course, in the short term is gonna provide some immediate relief. But in the long-term view, as we look at this opportunity for our downtown core, is it the highest and best use for a facility or a parcel that fronts the creek there? I don't know. So that's why I wanted to bring it in front of you all to discuss further. And I just want to just open it up for a broader discussion on that. So I want to answer any questions you might have, but just want to put it in front of you all just to start thinking about what possibilities there might be for that location.
Mr. Chair, of course, I have a comment, but I think you hit it spot on, Steve. As we travel around, it is much different. You have to walk lots of places, but including, you mentioned Bam Jam, and that's a great example. Everyone found some place to park to go play basketball, right? So I think that if you want to do that, and if you want to go there, are we listening to the few numbers that want to park right up front, or the other 90%? And don't quote me on that, because I don't have those numbers. I'm just saying, or the folks that seem to find a way, like you said. So everyone was here for Bam Jam. I didn't get any emails about they couldn't park or find their way to the basketball court. So I just wanted to say you made a good point, and I heard you. So thank you.
So your point is well taken. I think we sometimes jump to this conclusion that we have a parking problem. But again, in relationship to other locations where you go, and I've traveled a bit, our parking is no different than, or probably better than some of the other places I've visited. Any other idea where you would put a parking structure other than this prime piece of Creekside property?
Yes, Chairman, Commissioner, all good. I've looked around, so of course, having a family, I always think twice about where it might be appropriate to place a garage, because I think about Winter Wonderland and the festivities that we have leading into the holiday season, and all the little kids running around and the families. We love seeing that, and that's what we want to draw into our community. So making sure it's a safe and accessible location is key. As a team, development team, we've talked about multiple locations. We talked about, of course, with the potential of, City Hall relocating at some point, maybe that property would be appropriate for a structure. Of course, that puts you a little bit, on the outskirts. But if we had a hot crossing of some kind that would allow for a safe crossing there, that would certainly put my mind at ease. We also talked about the parking lot that we created on Albany there in Kimball as a potential garage. But you have some barriers there with the tracks and of course proximity to the plaza and those types of things. And then we talked about, of course, the city owns the TVCC parking lot, and we discussed potentially having a structure there and what that would do. I know that's been tossed around for a number of years. One of the other components I want to throw out there is within this garage structure, there's a way in which you can do it. You can build a structure to maximize your commercial and retail footprint as well, to not eliminate those opportunities. So you can integrate the two concepts into one. And that's the approach that I believe the city should take as we investigate these opportunities, and in particular in a location like this TVCC parking lot, the Nancola Center parking lot. If we were to develop a structure there, it certainly would be important for us to retain that commercial retail space on the first floor, and then find a way to integrate parking into a structure there. So we've discussed all those elements, but we do have a variety of ideas floating around in discussing these concepts with these contractors that actually focus on parking structures. That was mentioned to me that, gosh, if I were the city, I certainly would not develop a parking structure on a property that has that adjacency to the creek and access to the plaza in that regard. But that's just something that was mentioned, something that I had thought about, since that discussion and really just want to put it in front of you all to discuss further.
Comments? Mr. Doty, do you have a comment?
Just one more.
Yes.
As a TVCC parking lot, I remember us discussing this quite a few months back, but it had a big enough footprint, right, without having to acquire any more space or property to put in a parking garage on that.
Absolutely, Commissioner Doty, yes, that space there, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the largest space that we own downtown, right, as far as that block is concerned? Yeah, I don't know the exact measurements, but.
Yeah, it's a full half block, plus you have this additional 80 feet of right of way on the end.
Either way, we're up against the creek, I guess.
Yeah.
Other comments? Steve, if the commission was so inclined to direct another RFP for the 510 site, how quickly could something like that be put together?
Yes, Chairman, thank you for that. And honestly, rather quickly. Of course, we've been through this process a few times now, and it has allowed us to understand, what specifics need to be included within the RFP, but also just the encouragement that we've seen as a development team within the last proposals is just a recent example. What if there's a way that, gosh, we can retain all these excellent plans and just kind of move them around to different areas of downtown? So those are concepts that we've thought about internally. So yeah, to answer your question in a very long-winded manner, rather quickly.
Okay. But, we just did a lot of hand-wringing about two good proposals here that we had to say no to. And so opening up another opportunity seems to make a lot of sense. So, other comment? Well, this was just a discussion item, so if there are no more comments, we will.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion for adjournment. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Doty. Do we have, will the secretary call the roll? Let's do it that way.
Warwick,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
Porter,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Alvin,
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks, everybody.
No. No, I think we missed our mark on the interest rate and assessments and all that stuff.